The officer class, where none of the weapons are bad, and one of them has the second highest damage per round. Let's take a look at the hand cannon, the S-5. Today in Blaster Breakdown, we're going to look at the first officer weapon you'll unlock, the S-5. Like all unlocked weapons, it has 3 attachments available: reduced recoil, dual zoom, and ion shot. The dual zoom and reduced recoil turn this weapon into a sniper, and if you get close range fights, the damage on this weapon is the second highest per round in the game. This weapon really can do it all. If you enjoy this video, let me know by giving it a like, and then hit the subscribe and notification button so you don't miss when new videos are out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central. Be sure to check out our partners at StarWarsGaming.net so you don't miss when news breaks and to stay up to date with all things coming across the Star Wars gaming universe. I don't have a "Can I get up there?" today for you, but tomorrow there will be a special video solely on "Can I get up there?" showing you a good spot on Camino Phase 2 for the Clone Troopers. It's pretty awesome, so it gets its own video. Let's talk about the S-5. The S-5 has 10 rounds that can be fired before it's forced to cool. This is the lowest in class and is the same with or without the ion attachment. There is no cooling attachment for this weapon, so there's no way to expand the number of rounds available. However, where it lacks in the rounds available, it outshines the other weapons and the damage, which we'll talk about here in a second. But before we get to the damage, let's talk about the second stat the S-5 is lowest in class on, and that's rate of fire. The rate of fire for this weapon is 150 rounds per minute, which is slower than the Blurg's 180 and pales in comparisons to the SE-44C's rapid fire at 510. At 150 rounds per minute, the S-5 ties for the second slowest firing weapon in the game, tying with the IQ-A11 and only in front of the NT-242, which has a rate of fire of 75 rounds per minute. When we compare the S-5 and the IQ-A with the rounds available, the S-5 is a little better with 10 rounds available. However, the IQ-A with cooling is only behind it by just a little bit with 7. While the S-5 falls behind the other officer weapons in rounds available and rate of fire, it shines when it comes to the damage per round. The S-5 does a whopping 67 damage per round at close range and drops to 45 damage per round at long. With the ion attachment equipped, the S-5 does 60 damage at close range and 40 at long. In comparison to the other officer weapons, none of them do more than 35 damage as of patch 1.2 at close range, so even at long range, the S-5 does more damage per round than any other weapon in this class, which is why it's tend to be compared more towards the sniper rifles than it is to the officer's pistols. At 67 damage per round at close range, this weapon is second highest damage per round available in the game. It falls behind the NT-242, which does 106 damage, and just above the IQ-A11 that does 66 damage per round. The main difference between the specialist weapons and the S-5 is the S-5 does have a damage drop-off, where the specialist rifles don't. At close range, the S-5 will drop a specialist in 2 rounds, an assault, officer, or a heavy in 3, and at long range, it'll take 3 for a specialist, 4 for an assault or officer, and 5 for a heavy. If you're brave enough to run the ion attachment, it'll take 2 rounds for a specialist, 3 for an assault or an officer, and 4 for a heavy at close range. And if you start to push long range, it'll take 3 for a specialist, 4 for an assault or officer, and 5 for a heavy. You don't really lose a whole lot when you run the ion attachment when it comes to the damage per round. However, remember that the slower rate of fire makes it harder to get off that extra round for that kill. The S-5, like all weapons, has a 1.9 multiplier for headshots without the ion attachment. So at close range, you'll do 120 damage with a headshot, and at long range, 85 damage. If you equip the ion shot, the headshot multiplier drops to 1.1. So at close range, you'll do 66 damage with a headshot, and at long, you'll do 44. That's really where the ion shot hurts you when it comes to headshots for troopers. The cooling or reload time on this was calculated recording the gameplay and then loading it into a video editor for a frame by frame. The cooling started when the heat bar started highlighting red and ended when it was operational again. I don't have access to data mined cooling times, I couldn't find it anywhere. so I kind of had to go old school with this and just do an in-game testing. When it comes to the reload times, the S-5 is the same as all officer weapons. They all came to a full 3 seconds to cool the weapon if you fire off all rounds and are forced to cool without attempting the minigame. If you attempt the minigame and you hit the blue, it'll take 1.16 seconds, and the gold comes up at about 2 seconds. If you manually cool the weapon, it takes 1 second, regardless of how many shots you fired. So ideally, you would want to manually cool this weapon after 9 shots. However, the blue section comes up at 1.16 seconds, so it's not that much of a difference if you miss your manual cool, as long as you time it right when the cooling starts. With the slowest rate of fire in class, the S-5 has the best accuracy in class as well. Firing this with reduced recoil is like having no recoil whatsoever, making this a great option for the medium and long range engagements, and for taking out specialists and others from across the map. Without the recoil reduction though, it is a little bit messy and hard to control. But since you can get the recoil reduction after 50 kills, it really shouldn't take you that long to get it unlocked, and the recoil pattern is the same with or without the ion shot attached, so there's really no change there. Compared to the other weapons in the officer class, this is your long range officer weapon. It has great damage, even at range, and outperforms every other weapon in the officer class in the damage category. It's a strong weapon if you like semi-automatic blasters, so give this one a shot if you haven't already. It's great to be paired with the squad shield, since you can use the squad shield as mobile cover for those long range fights and pop in and out like you do with Leia when you're firing off her alternate fire. It's also best in the hands of a support player who's not always pushing the front lines. You can use this as an aggressive player, however it is a little bit more of a challenge, especially with the issues in patch 1.2. I know this was a shorter video, but I really do appreciate your guys' time and taking the time to watch it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in game.